Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine a book, right? So utterly astonishing, um, so full of tales that for centuries, people just kind of scratch their heads thinking, is this even real?
Pure fantasy, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're talking about a text that just blew the doors open on a world way beyond Europe. It changed maps, got explorers like Christopher Columbus all fired up.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the real kicker. It started in a prison cell, co-written by a merchant, and get this, a romance writer.
Yeah.
Its whole existence just makes you rethink, truth, storytelling, how we see the world.
Well, and what's really fascinating, I think, is how the description of the world, or le dévisement du monde, it's not just some simple travel diary.
No.
It's this complex, almost paradoxical thing. It's
Yeah.
woven from stuff Marco Polo actually saw, but also old legends and, like you said, literary skill from Rustichello. It
Right.
really shows how connected the medieval world was in ways we often kind of forget.
So today we're taking a deep dive into this amazing work. We'll look at how it was made, this kind of accidental creation,
Almost.
and the surprising things it tells us about medieval Asia and how scholars are still trying to figure out all its layers.
It's an ongoing quest, really.
Our mission, like always, is to pull out the really key stuff from the latest research, not just dry facts, but the insights that make this book, well, a shortcut to understanding the Far East back then, and hopefully have a little fun with it.
Absolutely. And to do that, we're drawing on current academic work, solid historical studies, and some pretty groundbreaking linguistic and archaeological finds recently.
Finds that actually help confirm things.
Yeah, they're literally helping us check and shed light on things people argued about for centuries, especially with all the different versions of the book floating around.
Okay, so, origin story.
Mm.
This wild book, how did it even start? We have to go back to that collaboration. Le Dévisement du Monde, or Il Million, as some people call it.
Mm-hmm.
It was Marco Polo, the experienced Venetian merchant, and Rustichello da Pisa, this well-known romance writer. Quite the team.
It really is an unlikely pairing. And the setting, you can make it up. A Genoese prison, 1298.
Both locked up together.
Both locked up. And that's where they start putting Marco's stories down. And the language they used was this Franco-Italian,
It was just,
sort of French with a heavy dose of Italian mixed in. Really reflects the linguistic kind of melting pot of the times.
so it wasn't like some carefully planned historical record, more like a creative project born out of boredom.
Well, maybe not just boredom. Scholars call it this odd and unobvious collage, right? Part treatise, part merchant's guide, part romance novel.
You don't see that every day.
Definitely not. But recent research makes it pretty clear that the initial push, the drive behind it, was really the Polo's business sense, their commercial goals.
Ah, okay. So they weren't just tourists taking notes.
Not at all. They were sharp operators, which, raises that big question. If business was key, what really pushed Marco to start this specific project? This weird hybrid book about Asia? Was it just about credibility for more trade, mapping routes, or something deeper?
That's where it gets really complicated, doesn't it? Because understanding this book means diving into this incredibly messy textual history.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not just one book, not like, a first edition you can point to.
Far from it. The history of Marco Polo's text is one of the most tangled in medieval literature. It's definitely not a single fixed thing. Think of it more like a work in progress, always evolving.
How many versions are we talking about?
Over 140 manuscripts that we know of, and they all have significant differences. Bits added, bits left out, things rephrased.
Sure.
It's like the book itself was alive, changing over time. So now scholars talk about this stratification theory.
Like layers in rock.
Exactly, like an archaeological dig, but for the text. It suggests Marco kept adding details, maybe clarifying things, onto Rustichello's original core story over the years. It wasn't just copying, it was like dynamic new writing.
And that complexity must have made translating it a nightmare.
Oh, a huge challenge. Think about those early English translations. They often just created these artificial texts.
Absolutely.
They just grab bits and pieces from later manuscripts, different translations, and mash them together, which, kind of waters down the specific historical context.
So you weren't really getting Marco Polo's original view, maybe? More like a later interpretation?
Pretty much. You lose the nuances. Even the Franco-Italian F version, which is probably the closest we have to the original, even that is linguistically messy. Scholars say it can seem garbled, full of Italians sneaking into the French.
So how do scholars deal with that now?
Well, there's this big ongoing project, Marco Polo Digitale. The goal is to allow really detailed comparisons between all these manuscripts.
All right.
They're working towards a truly authoritative critical edition and what they call a critical translation, trying to philologically reconstruct the text like textual detectives.
Piecing it back together. That's amazing. And despite all those past issues, modern scholarship is clearing things up, right?
Definitely. I mean, take Luigi Foscolo Benedetto's 1928 edition. It was foundational for ages, but we now know it had errors, lines missing, words misread.
Right.
But the really exciting stuff is coming from recent linguistic work and archaeology, especially using Chinese sources, stone inscriptions found relatively recently.
Stuff Marco wouldn't have known about.
Exactly. And these are letting us pin down place names that were ambiguous for centuries.
Like what? Give me an example.
Okay, so Marco mentions a green mound near the Great Khan's palace in what's now Beijing.
Okay.
For ages, people guessed. But now, it's confirmed as Kongwadao, or Wan Sushan. And how do we know? A bilingual stele, an inscription from 1268 was found.
Bilingual.
Mongolian and Chinese. And it uses the exact same phrase for the mound Koke Gula and King Shanner.
Wow. That's like finding a direct linguistic link across century.
It's incredible. It nails it down. Same thing with a royal hunting spot Marco calls Kachir Modun. It's now confidently identified as the Mongolian Gocha Modun. These kinds of discoveries confirm Marco's detailed observations and strongly suggest, he was actually there. He saw these things.
Not just repeating stories he heard. It's like finding a geotag from the 13th century.
Pretty much. It adds so much weight to his account.
Okay, so let's get into what he actually saw. His glimpses into Asia. It wasn't just about places, was it? You mentioned this idea of a denominational topography. What's that about?
Right. So it means he wasn't just describing the landscape. He was systematically mapping the religions of the people he met.
Ah, yes, sir.
His book is actually a really valuable source for understanding the religious diversity of 13th century Asia. He paid special attention to Nestorian Christians.
Really?
Yeah, he documents how widespread they were along the Silk Road, through Central Asia, South Asia, and even flourishing communities in Yuan, China. Kublai Khan actually gave them a specific protection.
That's fascinating. So he's categorizing by faith. But he missed some, right?
Yeah, he did. While he mentions Buddhism, Islam, and others, he noticeably leaves out Confucianism and Taoism in his descriptions of China.
Why do you think that was?
Well, the thinking is maybe their practices, their philosophies seem too subtle. Or maybe they didn't fit neatly into the kind of religious categories a medieval European Christian like him understood.
Interesting. Okay, let's talk about some of the specific, maybe more wondrous details he describes. Daily life, customs.
Oh, yeah, there's some great stuff. Take the Andaman Islands. He describes the people there as man-eaters with dog heads who traded spices.
Dog heads. Okay, that sounds like pure fantasy.
Well, here's the thing. Similar stories pop up in Chinese and Arab sources from around the same time.
No way.
Yeah. It suggests there was this kind of shared body of stories, this world empire of letters, circulating before Europeans dominated the Indian Ocean trade. He might have been recording a widely believed, if inaccurate, tale.
Okay, so maybe not first-hand observation there, but recording the lore. What else?
Then there are the Tibetan marriage customs he describes, which are pretty different from European norms.
How so?
He talks about how young women are expected to have had, well, quite a few lovers before marriage. They even carried tokens or signs as proof. And apparently this made them more desirable as wives.
Wow. And what did Marco think of that?
He calls it a bad custom. You can clearly see his European perspective clashing with what he's observing. It's a great little snapshot of cultural difference.
Definitely. What about that bamboo story?
Ah, the fire of bamboos in Tibet. Yeah, he describes how travelers would heat up these large green bamboo stalks in a fire.
Yeah.
And when they got hot enough, they'd twist and then split with this massive pop. He says you could hear it for up to 10 miles.
10 miles. What was the point?
Scaring away wild animals, lions, bears, you name it. A pretty ingenious low-tech alarm system and deterrent.
That is clever. Using nature against nature. So we've got dog-headed islanders, unique marriage customs, exploding bamboo. What about cities? He talks about Kinsai, right?
Yeah.
Zoo.
Oh, yes. And he goes completely over the top. He calls it, and I quote, the noblest city and the best that exists in the world.
High praise. But he exaggerated other things there too, didn't he? The numbers.
Massively. He claims there were 12,000 bridges. The real number was closer to 347.
Okay, that's a bit of a difference.
Just a bit. He says the city was 100 miles around. It was more like 20.
So why the hyperbole? Was he just trying to impress people back home? Make it
Yeah.
sound even more incredible.
Probably a mix of things. Maybe genuine awe that got inflated in the retelling. Maybe, like you say, just enhancing the marvel. Some scholars think he was maybe trying to paint it as a kind of Venice of the East for his readers, using numbers to convey unbelievable scale and grandeur.
The ultimate medieval travel blogger, maybe? Adding a few zeros for clicks?
Huh. You could sort of see it that way, yeah.
Now, it's important we also talk about Marco Polo himself. His role.
Yeah.
Recent research suggests he wasn't just a merchant, right?
That's a really key development. There's pretty strong evidence suggesting Kublai Khan actually made him a Miles, basically, a knight.
A knight. A Venetian merchant, knighted by the Mongol Khan.
Sounds strange, but yeah. And possibly enrolled him in the Kiig,
Which was?
the Khan's elite bodyguard and attendants, a really high-status military and administrative unit.
So if that's true, what does it mean for his account?
It means he likely had incredible access. He probably learned Mongol archery, went on important missions for the Khan. He wasn't just observing from the outside, he was, to some extent, on the inside.
And that shows up in his descriptions.
Absolutely. His details about Mongol military stuff are remarkably precise and often backed up by Chinese sources.
Like what?
Their flexible tactics, how they dealt with war elephants in the campaign against Myanmar, showering them with arrows from horseback. He even notes the presence of Allied troops, mercenaries from the Caucasus within the Mongol army. These aren't things a casual visitor would likely know or note down.
And how he talks about the Mongols.
Right, yeah.
There's a specific style, isn't there?
Yes, the narrative often uses language familiar to European courts. Feudal terms, courtly descriptions. It kind of frames the Mongol world in a way his audience could grasp.
Like calling him the Khan's man.
Exactly. Marco is introduced to Kublai as my son and your man, classic vassal to overlord language in Europe. It's a kind of cultural translation.
Makes sense. It helps bridge that gap.
And it pushes back against simpler ideas like, that the Mongols just rolled over southern China because the Chinese farmers weren't trained soldiers. Marco's account, especially if he was in the Kishig, gives a much more detailed, nuanced view of those campaigns. He saw the strategy, the logistics, the different troops involved.
Okay, so it's this incredibly rich, complex, sometimes exaggerated, but often deeply insightful account. How did people react when it first came out?
Well, initially, a lot of disbelief.
They thought he was making it all up.
Pretty much. His stories were so outlandish to European ears that apparently "it's a Marco Polo" became slang for a tall tale, an exaggeration.
No kidding. So he was famous for maybe not telling the truth.
Ironically, yeah. But Marco himself stuck to his guns. The story goes that on his deathbed in 1323, people urged him to recant the lies. He supposedly refused, famously saying something like, "I have not written down the half of those things which I saw."
Wow, you think this is wild. I saw way more.
Exactly. And, he wasn't entirely wrong about holding back, perhaps. His book does have strange omissions.
Like the Great Wall. How do you miss the Great Wall?
That's the million-dollar question, and we already talked about the inflated numbers. But despite the omissions and exaggerations, over time, the tide turned.
How so?
As more information trickled back from Asia, as more people traveled slowly but surely, most of his reports started to be confirmed. People realized, okay, maybe the numbers are off, maybe some bits are legend, but the core observations about geography, customs, politics, a lot of it was actually true.
So the skepticism faded.
Gradually, yes. And the book transformed from a suspected fantasy into this incredibly vital source of knowledge. It fundamentally shaped how Europeans understood Asia for centuries.
Geography, culture, technology, everything.
Yeah, people, governments, religions, plants, animals. It was comprehensive. His descriptions were so authoritative, they formed the basis for European maps of Asia well into the 16th century.
That's incredible influence, just from this one book.
And think about the explorers it inspired. Christopher Columbus famously had a heavily annotated copy.
Right, so it directly led to more exploration.
You could argue it was the single most influential travelogue ever written, certainly up until maybe the 19th century. Not bad for a book started in prison.
Not bad at all. What about the way it's written? You mentioned the style.
Yeah, the narrative style feels a bit repetitive to us now, maybe clunky. Lots of summary phrases, repeated formulas, but that reflects medieval writing techniques.
It worked for the time.
It was effective for its original audience, yeah. Helps structure the information, make the vast amount of detail digestible, memorable even.
So wrapping this all up, what's the big takeaway here? Le dévisement du monde.
Yeah.
It's more than just an old travel book, isn't it?
Oh, much more. It's not just a historical document. It's like a lens showing us how knowledge was actually built, shared, and understood back then.
Right.
It's a testament to, the power of just looking closely, the unexpected results of collaboration, even unlikely ones.
Like a merchant and a romance writer.
Exactly. And it really highlights that fascinating, sometimes blurry line between hard fact and, well, sheer marvel.
And if we think bigger picture, it makes you wonder, doesn't it?
How so?
Well, how much of our own understanding of faraway places or even past times is shaped not just by the plain facts, but by the way things are told, the language used, the cultural assumptions hiding beneath the surface, even the bits that sound fantastical?
That's a great point. How do we separate the truth from the story, especially when the story itself carries its own kind of truth about how people saw the world?
And consider this for a final thought. If Marco Polo really didn't write down half of what he saw, what else is out there? What other incredible insights about our world, past or present, are just sitting in historical texts waiting for us to, I don't know, look at them differently? Maybe find that bilingual steel that unlocks it all.
Makes you wonder what marvels are still waiting to be unpacked, doesn't it?